Hey guys, Felipe here, again with another video. And this video, I want to talk to you guys about why I hung up my uniform. Why, after 7 years, I decided to hang this thing up. Fold it away and put it away in my closet. And I'll start by prefacing this with a quote from The Dark Knight. And if you guys have not seen the Batman movies, awesome movies, recommend you guys go see them. Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight says a quote, and he says, "You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain." And I say this, and I'll get into the details as to why I felt this way. Um, I was at a point in my career where I had been a captain, been in for 7 years. I was a year and a half, 2 years away from majors board, and I saw the majors at my unit in the Marine Corps. Majors I interacted, majors I didn't interact with. I would see them, how they act, how they operate, and even lieutenant colonels and colonels. Like I would see how they would operate, and we've been instilled in us since you're a lieutenant, since you're at the officer candidate school, to be unselfish. It's one of our 14 leadership traits, like unselfishness. And even like my CO, my last CO, and even some of the other officers, senior officers, would preach like unselfish, be unselfish, that they don't like selfish people. And the most selfish people I saw in the Marine Corps were the freaking 04s and above. And even some of like the E7s and above, they're kind of like starting to get that mentality where it's more about them. And you really, as a company grade officer, you start to see this, and you're like, you're telling me to be unselfish, but you're being selfish. And it makes me have this mentality where I'm like, when I get to your level, I'm gonna be exactly the same fucking way. I'm gonna be selfish. I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want to do. Ain't nobody gonna fucking tell me shit. And I would hear myself telling myself these things, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I getting so salty? Why am I having this disdain for like that kind of behavior, that mentality, And it's because, like, even at my rank, I would say something and they'd be like, they'd brush it off. They don't give a fuck. And if you guys don't know, I was at the Marine Corps facility Quantico for my last 2.5 years. And at Marine Corps facility Quantico, there was only about 150 Marines, 11 officers. There was 4 officers that were higher ranking than me: CO, XO, OPSO, and the freaking doc. Everybody else was either equivalent or below. Nobody really told me anything, right? I was already in a point where if somebody said something, I'd look down my ranks and I'd be like, fuck, like, walk away, right? Or if there was an issue and they were higher ranking or equivalent, I'd be like, look, my boss works fucking downstairs. You guys can go fucking have a conversation with him. But I always did things the right way, how we were supposed to do it, by the order. So there wasn't anything that people could ever like come back and be like, you're not doing things right. And I'm like, fuck that, fuck, I'm not. The order says I am. So people at these higher ranks, like they just think they're like hot stuff and they could do whatever they want. And so I would see that, and I started to want to emulate that, and I did not want to emulate that. I was getting to a point where I was like, I'm starting to get salty, getting treated like shit, and there was really nothing you could do about it, right? And I'll give you guys an example. For those of you that know the MOSs, the supply officer role is not an easy role, especially if you're in an account that requires a lot of work, a lot of attention, we're always staffed with minimal people. We're never fully staffed to our capacity. So people always have to pick up that slack. And I know it's the same in other MOSs, but other MOSs don't deal with the budget. They're not dealing with the execution of fiscal law, and they're not dealing with property. Where if you fuck any of those things up, you're fucking gone. All right. So if you're a grunt, like, cool, like, you have nowhere near the amount of responsibility I do, because guess what? I too have Marines, and you have Marines. The only difference is I also manage a budget. I manage the property. I manage execution. I make sure that we're doing things fiscally sound, and we're taking care of the freaking the property and equipment, right? Like, we're spending money the way it's supposed to be spent. We're doing our fiduciary responsibility. And so I have a lot on my plate. I don't want to get fired. So I'm always going above and beyond. I always gave 110%. None of my officers, senior officers, and nobody below me or above me, my peers, could tell me that I didn't do any otherwise. I always gave them 110%. In not just the position, but in everything else I did, to only be disrespected, or to be treated like shit. And I'll give you guys one example. As a supply officer, I was intelligent at property investigations. I won't get into the whole like forms, DD-200s, and everything and all that stuff. So I was really good at property investigations. I knew what needed to happen because I dealt with it. I did all the paperwork. I made sure that it got routed to the people who had to sign off on it. I knew that Marine Corps order in the back of my hand. And part of it was because it was part of my job, right? Like, I wanted to be good at every aspect of my job. I wanted to be a subject matter expert. I did not have a staff NCO that I could freaking rely on. So an investigation came down from my higher headquarters. They're like, hey, we need somebody to do an investigation, a property investigation. The command was like, okay, well, we only have 3 officers that we can give it to. Me, the comptroller, and the S4 officer. The logistics officer, the comptroller, they're our budget officer, and then the supply officer, me. And I was like, sir, I'll do it. Why? Because I was really good friends with the Lago, the S4 officer, and the comptroller. If you're supple, those are 2 of your best friends, absolutely. So they were my really good friends. And sorry guys if I just hit the mic. So I was like, you know what, sir, I'll do it. I'll do it in like a week and a half. Don't even worry about it. It's not like I can do it. I took on this responsibility aside from my daily duties. And what does that do is it puts me back. I stay at work a little later. I have to go out and do these investigations, do the interviews and all the paperwork, right? Take the pictures, make sure I'm doing my causative research appropriately. And well, I complete the investigation, turn it in, submit it. They were like, wow, this investigation is fucking amazing. The officer did a good fucking job on it. That's what I heard, down the road from my XO. My XO was like, hey, they said, really good job on the investigation. Cool. That's all I got. I didn't get nothing. I didn't get no award, no, just hey, they said good job. Got it. Did my job. I wasn't expecting anything else. I don't really care. Another investigation came down, another property investigation, shortly after, like a few months later. And I was getting close to my transition period, where I was going to start SkillBridge, wanted to start SkillBridge, and then start terminal. I had over 60 days of terminal leave. They were like, hey, give it to Captain Gomez. Like, higher headquarters was like, give it to Captain Gomez. And I was like, well, like, I'm gonna transition out here soon. I don't think it's appropriate. I'm doing all my things that I need to get transitioned out, my medical appointments and all these things like that, plus juggling a turnover, with my counterpart that was going to replace me. And if you guys don't know, the CEO, well, the CEO was also turning over, so I was preparing the account for a change of command. When a new commander leaves, or when a new commander shows up and the old commander is getting ready to leave, we do an account turnover, we do an assessment of the property, the budget, and everything. It encompasses everything. And doing all that, I was like, I can't really take that on. And I ended up doing it, but it was like a slap in the face because like there was nothing that came out of that. And I remember I went to like we had like monthly or quarterly, I think it were monthly sit downs with the base of the colonel of the base of Quantico, Marine Corps base Quantico, good old Colonel Brooks. Well, he has like the mentorship and leadership development like PME that he's trying to kick off at 1600 on fucking Fridays. Really, guy? Anyways, just terrible, terrible management skills. Okay, I get it. That might have been the only time to do it, but on a Friday, late as fuck. Are you fucking kidding me? In Quantico, where we're gonna sit in traffic for 2 hours, any fucking direction we go, maybe in an hour just to get off fucking base. Come on, guys. You guys can do fucking better than that. Especially if you guys claim to be some really smart fucking individuals, right? All right. Anyways, jump back to the story. He was there, and the investigations that came down. Obviously, I was appointed by him to do these investigations. We broke us up into groups with staff and CO and officers for the respective groups. It was all of that same rank. So our group was all captains, and we're talking about things to improve on, what we can do better, like, you know, what we would like to see changed. And I spoke. I was like, look, we need to get rewarded for going above and beyond on these things. Otherwise, we don't want to go above and beyond. And what happens is that you got people like me that get burnt out, or, you know, that go above and beyond, not even burnt out, but just want to do a good fucking job. And there's no reward for it. What do? Is they give you more fucking work. And doesn't improve your fucking career. It doesn't benefit you in your promotion. It does fucking nothing but give you more work, more time commitment that you got to give back, aside from your daily job. I knew fucking officers that were showing up to work at 9 o'clock, were getting their 2-hour lunch and going home by 2:30, and more than one, countless officers that would do that, that had a fucking schedule like that. And honestly, that's fucking bullshit. That why wouldn't they give it to somebody like that, right? That has a much easier schedule. But anyways, I took on the investigations because I was good at them. I was like, you know what, I'll get them done. I'm probably the better candidate to do it anyways. Not following a rotation or anything like that, right, for investigations. Well, when I was talking about that, I was like, hey, like, I was given an investigation. I did such a great job. They gave me another one. Guys, I have one of the busiest fucking jobs, company grade jobs. Like, are you fucking kidding me? And I still put my hand up for it. And, you know, I was like, instead of at the end of that, they shouldn't have been like, hey, you did such a great job, we're going to give you a 72. Or a fucking half day on a fucking Friday or a Monday, any fucking day. I don't really give a fuck. But for putting in all that extra effort, time, giving up my weekend to type a lot of this stuff up, you know, staying late at work, the least they could have done is giving me a half day. Even a fucking 72. I don't know. Fucking anything. Even a fucking handshake. I would have taken a handshake from the fucking colonel. You know? And he like came by on the tail end of that conversation. He was like, you're a Marine. You're a Marine 24/7. It's expected. Like, you know, and like, oh, you expect me to go fucking above and beyond and do all these other things with no incentive or reward? Are you fucking kidding me? That mentality is not the right mentality. That strikes me as like you had it shitty, or I had it shitty, so you're gonna have it shitty. Like, no, that's not the mentality that you want to foster. That doesn't foster a positive environment. That fosters a negative environment, because now, what did that do to me and all the other fucking officers that heard him fucking say that? Oh, so if we go above and beyond, there's no fucking reward because it's expected. Yet there's people who aren't doing that kind of work and going above and beyond and are getting fucking promoted and are staying in. They're sliding through the fucking cracks, working 6-hour fucking days, or that, if that, less than that, um, and are writing it out. They're like, you know what, I'm just gonna do 20 on fucking nice cozy jobs, and it is what it is. Like, no, it's like that. That's not the fucking kind of environment that you want to foster. And so for everybody that was there in that group, like, and heard him say that, now we're all like, well, why are we gonna go work harder? Like, I'm just gonna go to work from fucking 7:30 to 4:30 and call it a fucking day. I'm not gonna work through lunch. I'm not gonna stay late. I'm just gonna go home, even if I don't finish it, right? And if I get yelled at, whatever. At the end of the day, because even if I get a mediocre fucking fit rep, I'm still gonna get promoted. I'm still gonna go to PME. I'll give you guys one more example of that kind of behavior and that kind of attitude. My last CO, I would work late a lot of the days. Always worked extra hard. Fucking would work through lunch, sit there, eat my lunch while I'm working, and part of that was because I didn't have a staff NCO. He was gone majority of the time, and I was shorthanded. I only had the 3 Marines. And one day, I was like, you know what? I can leave a little earlier today. Did everything I needed to get done. Got ahead. Worked extra hard the last few days, the last few weeks. This day, I'm gonna leave at 4 o'clock. Actually, it wasn't even 4 o'clock. It was like 4:23. Left, I would say, on time. Well, my CO came upstairs and was like, Felipe left already? And my S4 officer and the comptroller were still there. And they're like, yes, sir, he's already gone. And he was like, well, tell him he owes me 7 more minutes. Like, okay, whatever. Fucking 7 more minutes. That's fucking ridiculous. I haven't talked to him, and I'll get into this story a little bit deeper in another video. You know what? Fuck it. I'll do it now. If you guys don't know, at the end of the fiscal year for the military, it's a hectic fucking time. The end of the fiscal year is September 30th. October 1st starts the new fiscal year. You need to have all your shit aligned, all your accounting, like your fiscal books, man. Your shit got to be straight. You need to have your budget spent. You need to have your money matched. Any disbursements, everything has to be aligned. You can only keep the certain amount of little budget that you need to operate the last 2 weeks of that fiscal year, but everything else needs to be spent, allocated to something, so that it closes out properly, and we're spending and we're using the government funds, the taxpayer money, accordingly, properly, not breaking the fiscal law and fraud, waste, or abuse. But it happens all the time, right? That shit, fraud, waste, and abuse happens all the fucking time. Well, it was like September 6th. It's like, fucking Wednesday. We had just gone back from a 96. And the CEO comes into my office and he's like, hey, I need you to take over this project, this Wi-Fi project, internet project. We're trying to get internet for our airfield. Why? Because we had firefighters that lived in the building in the airfield, and they didn't have Wi-Fi or anything like that. So they had to stay there like 24/7. They had their crew that would stay there, and they're like, "Whoa, they live there, so they need internet." So the CEO was on a mission to get them internet. Reasonable, I would say. Well, our S6, our communications department, which was only one guy, sometimes 1.5, he would get like support from a staff NCO, or people who were getting ready to transition out. Anyways, the civilian that worked in that position dropped the ball year long for a whole year. Didn't make any real progress in this project. And CO comes in September 6th, and he's like, Felipe, I need you to take over the project. I need you to make it happen. And I always made shit happen. If you needed to get something done, I would be the one to do it. Like, you'd come to me and I'd make it fucking happen. And I was like, sir, the fiscal year closes technically for us September 13th. That's like 6 working days. I was like, what happens when I don't make it happen on a project that they've been working on for a year? Because I'm your supply officer, I'm your accountant, I'm your freaking budget execution officer. Like your property manager. I do a shitload of fucking things for you. I make sure we don't go to jail in an orange jumpsuit. He was like, nothing's gonna happen. Like, if you can't make it happen, it's okay. I was like, okay, this sounds like a fucking trap. And I wasn't like with a negative attitude, and I was like, I'll do what I can, but let's being realistic here. The way the contracting works in the military and the Marine Corps, it's a fucking pain in the ass, and you're not gonna fucking execute anything in a week. And for you fucking contracting officers and the specialists, like, you guys are probably laughing at this shit because it's unrealistic. That was an unrealistic goal. That's like me fucking breaking both your knees and telling you to run the 3 mile. Like, what? Like, no, like, you're crippling me already and not giving me the enough time to even be successful, like, that's ridiculous. Anyways, I didn't make it happen. I physically could not make it happen. Not enough time, not enough knowledge on the subject. There are so many orders, so many people that you got to go through to make this thing happen, and nobody's playing fucking ball, especially at the end of the fiscal year. Nobody's like, everyone's a fucking berry at this point. So I don't make it happen. And then, to make things worse, I went on my fucking TRS, my transition readiness seminar, which was a week long, which I had been sent to by the command, by the XO. I was sent by the XO. Why? Because I needed to start my TRS a year before I transitioned out. And that was the only class that I could go to. So I went to TRS. So I couldn't make it happen. And then I had like 30 fucking extra days of leave, and I actually lost, I think it was like 7 or 11 days of leave, because I had to work, and I still worked during my leave period, but I had to take those days off. I took like 12 days because I had way too many vacation days. And so I went on leave so I don't lose my vacation days, because I wasn't going to get them back. But even then, I still lost like 7 to like 10 or 11 leave days. I don't even remember, but it was quite a few. And I didn't care. I was like, whatever, I lose them. I did what I could to take them during the year. And so I take my days. I come home to see my grandma for her birthday, September 27th. I get back, and I got sent to the Command Financial Specialist course. So from October 4th to October 10th, I was at this course. Again, I was sent to this course by the command, by the COXO, because if they didn't have somebody appointed for this program and making sure the program was running sound, we're going to get inspected by the commanding general, the CGI, the commanding general's inspection. We would have failed that program. And they didn't want to fill the program, so they put me there. I actually volunteered for it because, again, I fucking give 110%. I go above and beyond, and I make shit fucking happen. They sent me to that one. That was the first course that was offered, and the only one that's going to be offered to like February. So it was like October. The next course would be in February. They just like a bunch of stuff happening, so they weren't able to get any more courses. Well, I came back that following Monday, or I think it was a Tuesday. the CEO was like at the staff meeting was like, "Oh, Felipe, can I see you in my office after this downstairs?" I'm like, "Yes, sir." Um, and so he pulls me into his office, and he starts off by saying like, Felipe, like really terrible time to take leave and then go on this course, like, and TR, like, and I was like, what? Like, that's what you're gonna start off with? Like, hold on. TRS, I had to go, and for my leave, you approved it 4 months ago. He had approved my leave back in like July, June or July. Um, like, you approved it, and guys, if you're a supply officer and you're freaking or in supply, best time to take leave last 2 weeks of the fiscal year and the first 2 weeks of the new fiscal year. All right, at the end of the fiscal year and at the beginning. Why? Because you've spent all the money, you've done what you needed to do, and you got 2 weeks to fucking kind of rest, recover, on the front end and back end of that. Right? Why? Because we don't get our new set of money until October 10th to the 15th. Right? So you got about 2 weeks to kind of catch back up on all your paperwork, do all the things you need to get done. So if you execute properly, like, you're able to take those leave days. Why? Because there's nothing else to do in regards to the financial part of that job. And then the course, I was like, you guys sent me to that course. That was the only one available, and I volunteered for it. If you didn't want me to go, you could have just been like, no, we're not going to send you, send somebody else. And here's the other fucking catch for this was that there was a master sergeant that was supposed to go to that course from our unit with me. He didn't fucking go. Guess what happened to him? Fucking nothing. No paperwork, no fucking nothing. Whoop-de fucking do, right? I fucking volunteered for it. They sent me to the course. I'm the only one that showed up from my unit. And I'm getting fucking talked to because I volunteered and I went above and beyond, and the master sergeant, nothing fucking happened to him. Well, and then he goes on to say like, oh, and your staff sergeant, he's so fucking terrible, like, he sucks. And I was like, yeah, I know that, sir. That's why he shares a fucking office with me, so I can fucking micromanage him. You think I want to leave him on his own? Like, no. Like, I have to fucking watch everything he does and says, because he's gonna get me fucking fired, or he's gonna get you and me in trouble. So of course he sucks. That's why he's in my fucking office. You think I want to share an office with this guy? Fuck no, I don't. I like my office. I like having a privacy. I like being able to close the door and have conversations with people that want to have those closed door conversations, especially the junior Marines, right? I had Marines that would come to me from other departments, other sections on base, that wanted to come talk to me because they knew that, like, I was somebody they could confide in. So I'm like, yeah, okay. I was like, sir, you have anything else for me? He was like, no, you're good, right? Because that, like, what? That make no sense. You're gonna take your best fucking officer, or one of your best officers, and you're gonna just disrespect them like that. I don't know. Like, that kind of shit bothered me. And getting back to the point where he made that comment about, like, ooh, he owes me fucking 7 minutes, guys. I haven't. After that, I would say, good morning, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Like, do the proper greetings, and he wouldn't say anything back. I was like, okay, I don't really care. Like, fuck it. Like, if he doesn't want to say shit, like, I don't, whatever. I'm not gonna say nothing. Well, I hadn't talked to him for like 2 weeks. I hadn't had an actual conversation with him for about 2 weeks. After he made that comment, it was like 4:30 something, almost 4:40, and this was like 2 weeks later. He comes into my office, and he was like, "Wow, I'm surprised you're still here, past 16:30." And I was like, "What is that supposed to mean?" And he's like, "No, nothing." I was like, "Because I didn't even take lunch today, so technically I should have just left a little earlier." And he was like, he like laughed, and he was like, well, if that's the case, when I was a company grade officer, like, I didn't have lunch for like 6 years. I was like, okay. And just because you had it shitty doesn't mean I should have it shitty, right? And that was like the end of that. Like, nothing really came out of that, but I was like, that's what you want to say to me after me getting back in our conversation like 2 weeks later, That's what you want to say? That's the first fucking things you say to me? Like, that bothers me. And, that behavior and that mentality is such a negative mentality, and you got to break that cycle, because if not, I going back to that quote, right? Like, look at what is happening, and now it's getting to that point that's my mentality is starting to shift. It's like, when I get to your rank, I'm gonna do the same fucking shit. I'm gonna do the same shit to the next fucking guy. Why? Because I had it shitty. Because I had it shitty. They gotta have it shitty. And no, it doesn't have to be like that. You gotta break that freaking cycle. And honestly, like, I couldn't break that cycle, and so I decided, this was one of the reasons I got out. Doesn't matter what level you get at what point, like, you can never change that shit. You know why? Because people are gonna act the way they're gonna want to act, and there's always gonna be somebody higher ranking than you that's gonna be doing that shit, and you're not gonna be able to say a fucking thing. um and if you say it, it's gonna create an even fucking more hostile environment, because they're gonna retaliate on your ass. Like, so what do? You fucking keep your mouth shut, and you fucking transition the fuck out of there. um and people, I had a captain when I was in the infantry unit, and she was my logistics officer, and she was like, Felipe, it's gonna get better at the next unit, because 2-4 was a rough time, not from just for me, but for fucking everybody. And I plan on bringing some people on, and then tell you, so they can share their story with you guys, and they'll tell you it was a fucking nightmare um, that you just couldn't wake up from. And she was like, Felipe, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better at the next unit. And no, the fuck it did not. And I knew it was a cap. I knew that was bullshit. Oh shit. Why? Because I already had been at another unit before that. And like that, it doesn't get better. It gets worse. And why? Because you're already fucking salty. You're already kind of irritated. You already have this negative mentality. And like, that's, how do you change that mentality? Why? How do you change it when you are a lower ranking person, um, don't have any authority, don't have any power to make those changes? And if you say something, like, their perspective on you is going to change, and guess what? They're higher ranking than you. They're gonna have more power over you, and be able to say what's going to happen to you. Like, hey, send his ass to a fucking working party. Shitty ass mentality. Like, it is what it is, right? So I don't know. That was one of mine. I think the behavior, being selfish, but leadership preaches unselfishness. So you're a hypocrite, because you're preaching all this unselfishness and to do all these things, but one, there's no reward, and two, you're being fucking selfish. So, like, it makes me want to be more selfish, right? All right, guys, that's all I got for today. I'm about to arrive at school, and I'll go ahead and tell you guys a little more of the next videos, as far as to why I got out, why I hung up my uniform. Peace. Have a good night, guys.